Hello and welcome inside the Parc Fermé. Nice sign, Paul. Welcome inside the Parc Fermé for podcast number 710, the Bahrain Grand Prix review. This is Todd.
No, Todd, not now.
AKA Negative Camera. You know why I've asked you here.
You must convince the villagers that I'm harmless.
That's exactly what I need you to do. Why? Because we are going to review a race. You know how we do this.
We watch one, then we talk about it. Then we watch one, then we talk about it. Come on, Todd.
That's exactly what we do. But before doing any of that, I have to introduce my guest tonight, which of course means...
Wrecked from out of the wasteland. He's bad, he's beautiful, he's crazy.
Hello, everybody. This is Paul Charles, the International.
Paul, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Yeah. Happy Thanksgiving past days.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right.
How was your
It was
Thanksgiving?
My Thanksgiving was fine. Here in the States, we celebrate Thanksgiving. That was last Thursday, and we typically eat turkey. So, yes, it was a good Thanksgiving. Low key.
I've noticed in the world, people are starting to adopt the Thanksgiving thing too.
Oh, yeah?
A few people further afield,
Oh.
an excuse for a day off and a big plate of food, right?
Right. Yeah, big turkey leg,
Yeah.
Huzzah! Yeah.
I'm a real man, Mildred.
Yeah, right. Good turkey leg. Well, no, it was good. Good weekend. I had a brief chat with a couple of our Patreon supporters, Paul. I was doing a little research, and I thought, on those weekends when I'm doing work and writing stuff for the website and all that kind of stuff and doing a little research, why not just pop on a live channel with our Patreon supporters, and we all jump in and chat. Had a great chat with Zhao and Paul, and
All right.
two wonderful guys. As fate would have it, it was last minute, so there was just nobody knew it was happening really, and just I kind of sent it out there, and they both joined. But as it turns out, Paul, both of them are absolute anorak Lotus fans, huge Lotus.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. So Paul
Not a bad
lived.
thing to be.
No, Paul lived in the south of the UK there, and close to just a couple of miles from Goodwood.
Okay.
And Jean lived in Lille, France. So great chatting to you guys. I really enjoyed it. Had a great time chatting. And so then I got to watching this race. And after the first lap of the race, I got all these people emailing me, yelling at me about the halo. And you're such an idiot. You didn't like the halo. And I'm like,
Stop yelling at Todd.
Yeah.
What? Come
Seriously.
on. It's not what I've said at all. So I'm going to have to once again restate my position on Halo, which we'll get to in a minute. But Paul,
Yes.
now that I know you were texting me at the race, and then
You erased those pictures, I hope.
I did.
Okay.
Yeah. Those were compromising. Yeah. So that was good. But Paul, I do like your new haircut. You were
Thank
getting
you.
a little shaggy there. Your
I
COVID
was
cut.
a little crazy.
Yeah. Now you got a COVID cut going.
Yeah, I'm feeling good.
High and dry.
Mm-hmm. Going
Very
on to number
nice.
two on the back.
Number two. Oh, number two. You went to the number two.
I did, yeah. Keep going shorter and shorter. I don't know why, but it happens.
Yeah. See, I could go to number two, maybe number one, but if you get then you're into razors, and then that's a whole different deal.
Yeah, that doesn't
No.
sound like a good
No,
idea.
that's not. That's a lot of maintenance.
Don't even like shaving my face, let alone my head.
Everybody's like, what? What? What are you
What's the
talking
show about?
What?
Get to the show.
This is the show.
I totally get it. I
Yeah.
get it. They're like, oh my God, man, Romain Grosjean could have died, and you guys are talking about shaving.
Welcome to Men's Grooming Podcast. Yeah,
Oh man. All right, we'll get to it. All right, let's get to it, Paul.
we're going to get to it.
Talking about. Hey,
Yeah.
we are going to review the Bahrain Grand Prix. And before we do that, I wanted to say that the track, we've talked about this track. You've done track talks on this track, and
Mhm.
it was sort of the Sky Sports F1 was bigging it up as a pass fest. It wasn't quite the pass fest they had bigged it up to be.
It does have 3 DRS zones, so.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I do think the first 4 turns are pretty good, though. I kind of like the first 4, so I think those are pretty good. But it's not. I've seen much worse tracks.
Yeah, there's worse tracks, worse layouts. The first section, because it doubles back on itself twice, kind of sets you up for a up and under, right? If you give up something at the beginning, you're going to be compromised for the second half of it, and that allows people to attack back at you, which makes it interesting. And also, if you're trying to get someone, you're trying to set them up to make that mistake. There's a couple. It's a that part is good. I like the really fast entry turns, which is a whole different thing where you don't really bleed off much speed, and you've got to carry momentum through, and so you're just trying to keep that grip on that car and just try and stop upsetting the balance as much as you can, so you can keep all of those tires pressing in the ground. And also the very difficult left-hander into the tighter left-hander. I'm not sure what corner number that is now. But that's a really tricky track to corner to brake, because you're all biased over on the right side, but the left's really wanting to lock up the whole time. And we saw some video of all the drivers having to change their brake biases a lot on this track because of the different approaches to the so many different corners. And
is that left-hander the one that's off camber?
Yeah, it's that long. It's a long left-hander, and you really start having to activate the brakes before you're fully straight, and then it gets tighter, and then you're into the third DRS zone at that point. So it's a super important turn, and one where you can really destroy your tire very quickly if you get too greedy.
As Bottas found out.
Yeah, he did.
All weekend.
Yeah.
All right.
So it's challenging, and it can be fun, and we've known Bahrain to be very exciting race. Really ball fest too. So it's just how the race checks out and what tires they bring, etc., like that.
What evolution of the car is.
But I thought it was a decent race for where people, if they really were had an advantage, they did have the ability to get by whoever they were trying to get by.
Right. No, it was it was good. Well, let's start at the very top with the race winners.
Get in there, Lewis.
Yes.
Get down.
All right.
No.
It
is the other guy.
Yeah.
Lewis and the other guy.
Lewis and the other guy. So Mercedes, Lewis Hamilton in P1, Valtteri Bottas in P8. Lewis equaled his best ever season by securing his 11th win of the season by taking pole and then leading twice from a start and a restart. So he led both of those. The record of 13 wins in a season is certainly within his grasp. And his pace on Sunday was just unrelenting. Such is the dominance of that car in his hands. That W11, Paul, is just otherworldly at this point. It's like half second faster than everyone else, and has been since 2014. And I think they just, they knew it. I feel like they've evolved it, certainly, but they just kind of, this year, it looks like maybe everybody's a little more competitive. I saw that AWS graphic that said Red Bull advanced 2.26 seconds on us. Just turn the engine up a little bit, and they're back out front. But it was just Lewis, said it was a difficult race.
As he's want to do.
Yeah, he's kind of want to do that. Yeah,
this is the most difficult race of my life.
Yeah, every race is the most difficult race of his life. But he did say that Red Bull had a lot more pace here, so he had to be wary of that. And I'm thinking, not really. He was 5 seconds behind you. I think you're good, Lewis. But he did have a little bit of a concern and a reason to be concerned. And as it turns out, he was kind of right. He came on the radio. He had been going long on that final stint of tires, and Red Bull brought Max in for a late change because they had time in hand to make that change. And Lewis said, well, wait a minute, what's going on? What about a safety car? And his point was, if a safety car came out, Max would be on brand new tires and Lewis wouldn't, and he'd be a sitting duck, or that was the thinking. And as it turns out, the safety car did come out, but the race ended under a safety car for Lewis.
Yeah, pretty lucky there. Yeah, good heads up, as we've talked about before. He has such a book of knowledge and data now that all these things, the right things, spring into his mind at the right time, and so always he's analyzing from the cockpit because he can. Right. So it was a good call, and the safety dodgy kid that must have dropped everyone's hearts at that point. They're like, but when they're coming back to him, but we think it's just not enough, and whatever. We're just going to keep pushing, and then, but at least it shows that Lewis is still trying to notch those wins in. He's really, thirsty still to make those wins. Obviously, I think the benchmark is he wants to get a triple digits in poles and in wins, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I think that's really got to be his focus here, getting
Right.
another championship and triple digits, and then what else are you going to do? So
well, he was concerned about it. Then the safety car comes out, and the reality of it is that he trusted the team on that call, and it was the right call.
Yeah, it was the right call. They'd really look stupid if they pitted and he came out behind Max at that point, right? So he probably still maybe could have held off Max for a lap. So maybe he was safe. Who knows? The restarts. I was thinking about the restarts. How do they mix up the restarts a little bit? Because obviously, if you pull back so far that you get a run, there's no one going to make any gains on those restarts at all. But in US racing, the pace car stays in front of that lead car for much longer in the lap and pulls off at the last second, which is very different, right? So if they want to mix it up a little bit, maybe you'd do something like that and have that pace car stay on the track till the very last second. But it doesn't seem like that's the format that Formula One want to use.
Right. Yeah, good race for him. For Bottas, the weekend started poorly with multiple lockups during free practice sessions, giving one the impression that either he was really searching for the limits of each corner, or that he was, probably more to the point, struggling a lot with that car over the weekend and flat spotting every hard compound set he had on Friday. Didn't see that as much out of Lewis. So I think Valtteri ended up saying that the cars were set up quite a bit different. He was a little surprised at the gap to Lewis in qualifying, but you could see it. You could just see Valtteri struggling in those corners, a lot of lockups. The race wasn't much better for him. Had a slow start, lost 4 places at the start, then a puncture prompted an early stop, put him at the back. What was more intriguing about his day, Paul, was the inability for that Mercedes to make quick work of the slower cars, suggesting that it may not like traffic much. And that's all Bottas really had all day was traffic. And he wasn't scything through that field even at the sort of pace or efficacy of even Carlos Sainz in that McLaren.
Yeah, I mean, it's something we've seen before, even when Lewis has somehow found himself behind another car. The car is, the car is built to be leading the race. Yeah. And for the most part, that's a great idea, because usually it is, right? Right. For the many years, that's kind of their MO, and it's true. It's shown to be successful. Why compromise the aerodynamics on your car to run behind cars if you're never behind them? And that gives them that advantage and gives them that cushion when they are out front. Yeah. But unfortunately for Bottas, he's usually at least behind Lewis. So that hurts him a little bit, right? And then you put him back, it is going to be a struggle, because that's basically we know how finicky the aerodynamics all the car, and if that's the motive that the team went behind building that car, then he's going to struggle in those situations. But for the greater good, what they achieve and how they design that car has worked out pretty well. So is he getting frustrated? I mean, he came out blossoming at the beginning of the year, and at this point, he's just trying to salvage something of his dignity at the end of the year. So is he getting too tight on the steering wheel? Is he trying too hard? Very weird that they would go with such radically different setups, because this track, I wouldn't think you could go that diverse on your car setup.
That surprised me too.
Like-minded cars,
Yeah, I agree. And he's this close, Paul. He's dangerously close from losing second in the drivers' championship.
Right.
So it's not like I know Max Verstappen said that doesn't matter to him if he's second or third, and that may or may not be true. I'm pretty sure it matters to Valtteri and Mercedes to say that we won the championship and we were first and second in the drivers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I would think so. So anyway, unfortunate. And the bottom line, Valtteri, just
not good enough, damn it, not good enough.
Not good enough. All right. Let's talk about Red Bull. Max Verstappen, P2, Alex Albon, P3. Max had another slow start, but did enough to keep Perez behind him. The restart saw a better launch. So he was on the clean side for the initial, got a slow start. On the dirty side for the restart, got a better start. was stuck pedaling as fast as he could, just didn't have the pace to really challenge Mercedes. Felt like they were maybe not as aggressive as they could have been strategy wise to maybe put a little pressure on Mercedes. Not quite sure what they may have done, maybe different compounds, start on different, I don't know. But the reality of it is did not have the pace. They boxed him late for that fresh rubber, and had the safety car come out, I don't know, Paul, 4 or 5 laps earlier than it did, he may have had a real run at Lewis on worn tires, but that didn't happen. He finished second. And more critically, as I just mentioned, he gained points on Valtteri Bottas for second in the Drivers' Championship. So pretty straightforward. It's easy to say, oh, it's just an average day in the office for Max, but I thought he did have a really good race. He just, was a little frustrated that they couldn't put a little more pressure on the Mercedes.
Yeah, it is an interesting aside for this fastest lap pit stop strategy is that, you don't pit on the last lap to get just enough time to get that fastest lap. If you literally can pit at that window and you've got that cushion, that can give you a strategic advantage if a pace car comes out. So it's something always to remind yourself of when you're out there. If you've got the ability to get that free pit stop and be on fresh tires at the right time, then maybe that's something you should always strive for, especially when you don't quite have the edge to beat Mercedes, just fight, equal, but have enough pace to fight them if you've just got that slight advantage. I think it's a great move by Red Bull to do that continually, really, and just keep the pressure on him. Yeah,
I thought it was a heads-up move, too. When they first boxed him, and I looked at the time delta, and he had time to make that stop, and I thought, but it wasn't really until Lewis said, well, wait a minute, what about a safety car? And I thought, oh, crap, that's right. That's exactly what they were doing. And I thought it was heads up. And then it reminded me of conversations you and I've had, but I'm sure you guys with your Aston Martin team, you guys have your race strategies, but you always have contingencies. You're always thinking about safety cars.
Always, yeah. And always we're talking about fuel strategy, when you need fuel, pitting for track position versus, getting new tires on it. If a yellow comes out, that's all the scenarios you're always thinking about. Formula One's a bit different from our series, because our series track position is more important than fresh tires. Depending on, unless it's some radical track that like Laguna Seca, where the tires go away really, really quickly. So you're always fighting for track position, but with Formula One, where you've got these deltas and these big gaps, GTD, you're lucky to have a second on somebody, right? You've got these big gaps, then the fresher tires make it is a more compelling argument.
Yeah, it was a good one. For Alex, the restart saw him hold on to fourth, and he ran close to Perez for much of the race back and forth. It looked like he might be closing that gap down a little to Perez towards the end there, and I thought he was driving a really measured race at that point. Perez had that engine failure. The Racing Point suffered. That handed third to Alex, and the team seemed pleased with his effort, considering that he junked a car earlier in the weekend. So it was a good recovery drive from him. Is it enough to keep that seat? We'll find out. But I thought Christian Horner was very praiseworthy of Perez this weekend. And then when asked about Alex, he was like, hey, look, he had that situation over the weekend, destroyed a car, came back. He needed this result. And he was supporting Alex and said he had a great race and those kind of things. So that's all good. But I don't know. There's a lot of people parsing his words there where he was praising Perez.
Yeah, it was a better race for Albon for sure. I don't think it was a breakout I don't think it was a race, if you really look at it logically, that it would change your mind.
Yeah, I don't know that it was a seat-saving race.
I mean, he got on the podium. He got on the podium because the guy, who doesn't have a ride next year, his engine let go, Albon was catching Perez, but I'm not sure that wasn't because Perez was losing some pace because of engine issues. It's hard to say, right?
Right. That could be.
Yeah. So I think Albon had a better race, but still not a breakout race that really changes anyone's mind either way, really. And I don't know which way Red Bull are going. I know which way I would go, but they've got theories and mindsets behind a lot of things that don't make sense half the time, right? So we'll have to see what their decision is.
So not a seat-saving performance.
No.
Yeah, I didn't see it that way either. All right, let's talk about McLaren. Lando Norris in P4, Carlos Sainz in P5. Sainz had a terrible start to the weekend, and he started towards the back of the pack. But then the team fitted soft tires on him for the start, and he sided his way back through the field and into the points with some terrific passing from 15th to 5th. And it was a great recovery drive from him, given that both cars had such a bad Saturday. To see him come all the way back up, he stalled on Saturday, and the car was done. And so to march back from 15th to 5th, had some good passing, not all DRS, but some really good positioning, I thought, and just a really strong race from Carlos all in all to come back to P5.
Yeah, I mean, he was really up against it, wasn't he? And the strategy by McLaren worked out great, but he was a pit bull out there.
Yeah.
And the soft tire worked better than everyone was thinking.
And longer.
Yeah, which worked out great for him, right?
Yeah.
That he managed to, they put the soft tire on to get him something, but then the tire stayed with him, so he could achieve so much more with that soft stint. And then that got him in the place where he really could start really chomping down for points, and he was playing with the Ferraris out there pretty good. So, and from McLaren, it was an awesome result. From having a couple of races which were pretty mediocre, I would say, and gotten back up on the pipe to chase that position in the Constructors Championship.
Yeah, well, for Norris, it could have gone pear-shaped, as he had damaged his front wing on the first start, on the first lap, but a quick repair during the red flag saw him put on a terrific display, even passing Bottas on pace. Flat out pace. I thought, wow. Norris said once he got past the Renault duo, the race is pretty straightforward from then on. And it was a really good bounce back from a poor qualifying for Lando. I thought he put in a great race all the way up to P4. The key point here, as you just mentioned, the key point for McLaren is that they just took advantage of Racing Point's dual DNF and moved squarely ahead in the Constructors' Championship in third place, which could equal 10 to 11, $12 million, Paul. And for that team or Racing Point, that is a big deal. So that really stung Racing Point, but McLaren, great job.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big deal to every team right there in the midfield, right? None of them like to give up that money. I mean, I know we got the manufacturer Renault, that it may not be as important, but it is important to all of them. It gives them more tools to play with. So, another great job by Lando, just kind of backing up the pace that Sainz showed. I think it bodes really well for McLaren solidifying that third place. But we got 2 races to go, and whatever happens in 2020, you just don't know.
I know.
It did seem like they were on a slide, but if this car suits this track with the grip levels on the asphalt, I think it probably bodes well. Even though the configuration will be different, it still bodes well for them for the next race too, which gives them maybe a little bit of breathing space for the last race. So definitely the drivers are up for the task.
Yeah.
The car's there. Yeah,
for sure. And just keep in mind that had Perez not had that DNF, we'd be having a different discussion, Right. So, so anything could happen. And you got to think that Racing Point
probably will.
Yeah, you got to think they'll come back. So we'll see. We're talking about AlphaTauri next. Pierre Gasly in P6, Daniel Kvyat in P11. Daniel was involved in 2 very big accidents. The first being Romain Grosjean's fiery disintegration, and then Lance Stroll's upside down trip out of the race, for which Kvyat was penalized 10 seconds, suggesting he was the car behind and could have pulled out of the move. Which is kind of how F1 characterized it, but I'm not quite sure that it's that easy once you've got your nose tucked in. I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, I mean, but it's a matter of should you have put your nose in there?
In there to begin with, right?
And it was really close to it being a full-on move. And Kvyat was trying to get out the way. And it's, when you're dealing with the, cold tires, just trying to get everything working. You're looking at a braking zone, which is very small in a Formula One car. It's certainly not a first lap nutter kind of job by Kvyat. I think it was a move that was possibly there, but the door closed very quickly. But also I feel like Stroll should have a bit more awareness of where everyone is also. Because maybe he had the right to the apex, but by having the right to the apex, he took himself out of the race.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Awareness is hard to teach. You either have it or you don't,
Mm-hmm.
and you can read how the cars are moving, a little fluctuation in the mirror. You don't have to see the whole car pull to the inside, but there's little telltales that you can pick up. Unfortunately, cars are a little quiet, so it used to be engine noise was a good one too.
Yeah, right.
When you start braking, you hear another engine still on full song. You're like, well, what? Okay, someone's coming, right? You can't hear them anymore, unfortunately.
Right.
So there's lots of things to pick up on that I think Stroll may be missing a couple of those points because, as I said, it's great to be right, but it's also not great to be out of the race. And if you give them just a little bit of room, a little bit more awareness to give the room, they both would have made it through, and Stroll still would have been ahead of Kvyat. So I think the penalty was a little harsh for how close it was in my mind to being a spot-on move. So that's unfortunate for Kvyat, and obviously, being involved in that incident with Grosjean in the beginning, completely nothing to do with his fault at all.
No.
Must have been playing in his head for the whole race. I can't imagine you can't let that go. So, Kvyat just needed to get through this race. So that probably just added insult to injury with that issue.
Yeah, for sure. It left him saying all the time. Well, for Pierre, he made a one-stopper work, Paul. Ran long in his hard compounds with the team choosing to keep him out in favor of track position, fearing that he would cede too much of that track position for a late race stop. That proved to be the right call as the safety car ended the race with Pierre in sixth for a healthy points haul. And it's a good thing that the safety car came out because he was on the verge of getting swallowed up by the cars behind him. But Pierre said it was a very tough race. He said it was a real challenge because he had to push. No, wait, preserve. And he had to do that all day long. And he said it was really tough in order to do that. So a great race for him.
Yeah, I thought it was a great finish. And we've talked about it before, how, when you're getting these strategies from the pits, and it's really the life cycle of the tire is just so long, and what you do to it at the beginning really affects how that tire is going to behave in that last third of its life. So when they keep changing how you should be treating the tire, you're always going to be compromised either way, whether you're going to run short or you're going to try and make it run long. You're kind of compromised them both ways. So I think he did a really good job at the end there as well, because it seemed, in my head anyway, watching him drive, he was measuring the closing speed of the cars behind to save himself something to fight with, because he let them close up fairly quickly to a certain degree, and then that rate slowed down, and he started using his tools, started using whatever he could to try and negate being swallowed up. And I think he was actually going to do a really good job of it. He lucked out with the safety car to not actually have to fight with everybody all the way to the back of the pack, but I feel like he wasn't going to go as far back as some people thought he was, because of how he was treating, at what speed he was able to get out of that car, even with the older tires. Like Ricciardo was probably going to get him, but I'm not sure anyone behind him was, by how he was managing that pace at the end.
Yeah, I mean, there was Ricciardo behind him and Bottas behind him. He could have lost maybe one position to seventh by that time, but had he boxed, he clearly would have lost a lot more.
Right. Yeah. It was a good call not to box, but he had to really use all his skill to make it work.
Yeah, I did. I would read you what the team boss, Franz Tost, had to say, but no one knows who he is apparently. So.
Isn't that bizarre?
I'm sorry. I'm calling BS on that one, man.
Yeah.
I sit at home on a couch and I know who Franz Tost is. You're in that paddock.
And you've been there since 2007.
You've
and
been
so
there.
has Franz. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, dude, I'm calling BS. I'm calling that was an absolute middles to Franz Tost because you didn't like the whole concept of the salary cap. I was like, come on, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, I know I watched Franz Tost work the room of a high profile party, and I know he circled that. He must have ordered that room 4 times and not one person talked to him. So it could be possible that Lewis doesn't know who he is. And I
had to have bumped in the bathroom some point.
Oh, had
right?
to have. Yeah, I had to have. Yeah. Anyway, let's talk about Renault. Daniel Ricciardo, P7, Esteban Ocon, P9. Dan and Esteban were optimistic after a good qualifying session that saw them tightly matched, both of them. On pace, it looks like Ocon's really kind of, in the last couple of races, have been kind of coming on song, being competitive.
You say.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking anyway. It's what I feel, Paul.
Okay.
Feels. So anyway, on race day, though, Ocon found himself ahead of Ricciardo on 2 occasions, but Dan was quicker and was let pass the first time. And then the second time, he was aided by DRS, got around Esteban pretty quickly. Ultimately, Renault had decent pace, but ran out of laps to chase down Gasly for 6. Not sure why the team waited until both McLarens had passed them before swapping positions, though, Paul. That's the one thing I was thinking. When Dan was saying, I don't know why we're racing each other. By that time, Carlos had passed him and was gone. And they could have swapped him before Carlos got to him.
Right. As we know, those immediate decisions can make a world of difference. We saw it with Ferrari for that one year where, let's just wait a couple of laps. And that's when Leclerc went screwed this, right? And that's the right thing. It's like when you're fighting that midfield, which is so tight, you cannot sit there and give everyone a fair chance, the teammates against each other. Everyone's got a different program going on. You just have to kind of work with each other to move both those cars up as far up the grid as you can, rather than just give them a shot at the other guy. And I think that was probably a mistake. I think it was kind of a lukewarm performance by Renault. I think I'm surprised. I think they actually overachieved in their results in the end. For what they were doing at the track, they seemed to be heading backwards rather than forwards for most of the race.
Dan seemed to be struggling quite a bit out there. That's for sure.
But he still managed to finish against the lightning fast Ocon.
Yes, the brilliantly fast,
the steamroller of pace, Esteban Ocon. Gonna beat Alonso.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Let's see. Speaking of Ferrari, Charles Leclerc and P10, Sebastian Vettel P13. Leclerc had good starts, but couldn't hold on to the ground he gained due to a lack of pace. Charles, like others, benefited from the Perez DNF and claimed 10th for a point. But despite those, he had both the start and the restart, both good starts, got up and then quickly lost that pace. And it clearly, there was a moment a couple of races ago, 2 or 3, 4 races ago, I thought maybe Ferrari brought some upgrades. They were sort of doing a little better. And I kind of thought maybe they're in. All of a sudden now it just looks like they've, with Binotto back at team base and he's sitting back there,
He's redecorating. Putting the Christmas tree up.
Putting the Christmas tree.
Is the season over yet? I thought it was over.
I thought the season was over. He's back on a Zoom call with the team. And I just feel like at this point, it's over as far as development and all that kind of stuff. So I think they've been done and they've thrown in the towel a couple of races ago.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. Probably. Right. It did seem like they were making gains. But as we know, sometimes you can make gains in certain tracks will just kind of hold you back. And maybe this wasn't a track that anything they were going to do with this Ferrari was going to actually help them. Right. But it's pitiful to watch both those drivers fight the back end of the midfield, but that's basically what they're doing. I mean, sometimes Leclerc's been able to pull a rabbit out of a hat, but for the most part, that's not really happened. Vettel, of course, has a rabbit boiling on his stove at Ferrari, so very different lives they're living right now.
Very different lives. And they radio Binotto and said, "Hey, we finished P10. We got a point."
Woo!
He's kind of like,
Well, Lottie frickin' God!
He's back, got the Santa costume on. He's downtown in Maranello, handing out gifts to the kids. I don't know what's going on there, man.
Yeah. Then you got Vettel whining about this and that. Yeah.
I know. Well, Vettel, he had a tougher race, having started toward the back, and avoiding the Stroll incident left him even further back. Seb didn't like a move that Charles put on him and seemed uncomfortable with the car all day, saying that it was nothing like the car he'd driven on Sunday. And I don't know. I am going to go out on a limb here, Paul. I'm not sure what Seb's issue is, but given his pace all year, it does make me wonder if Racing Point is making the right decision.
Yeah.
21. I hope he redeems this and comes back. But boy, so Charles cut across the front, and I get it. And I like Seb. I've met him several times. He's a super good guy. It's just that, man, and then there's another side of me, Paul, that says, after what Ferrari did to him, can you blame him?
Right. I mean, these guys aren't robots. They get affected by things inside the team. That the Ferrari team are not going to be giving him any information at this point.
Right.
I still think they still want good results for him, but they're not going to compromise anything they're doing for the future.
Right.
Because he's going to be against them in 2 races time. Right. So he's not going to get anything magical given to him, and he's not going to be able to get anything magical out of the car. And Leclerc is the only benchmark for where that Ferrari is right now. So you're going to get frustrated, and it's literally like you've given you 2 weeks notice, and you're just looking at the door going, I do not want to eat lunch with these people one more time,
I'm done with the pasta. No more pasta.
Brad, do you mind playing with your pencil?
Put the Chianti away. I'm going back to Liebermilch. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Tough. Then we're down to Williams. George Russell in P12, Nicholas Latifi in P14, even though there was some attrition with 3 cars out of it in a dramatic fashion, Williams couldn't manage to squeak a point out of the race on Sunday. But, Paul,
what?
They came close, and they did beat a Ferrari.
Oh, ouch. Yes.
Oh, that's miserable. That has to hurt.
Mano a mano, yeah.
Yeah, that has to hurt. You have to think there's some guys in the Ferrari garage thinking, oh, my gosh, I got beat by a Williams. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. I mean, it is actually good news for Williams, quite honestly. I mean,
it's great news.
It's considering where they were, they beat a Ferrari. They were faster than the Haas cars. They were faster than the Alfa Romeos.
Yep.
And as things worked out for Williams, it was a 12th place car anyway.
Right.
And it didn't really gain any advantage from people dropping out or doing anything like that. So legitimately, I mean, it's a big step they've made in this past few months. So they should be buoyed by it, even if they're not going to score a point. And Russell's still going to be the longest guy to, I can't believe he's the guy that's raced the most races without scoring points, apart from Max Chilton.
Yeah.
And it's like neither of those guys had like 10 races under their belt, but I thought there's a lot more guys that didn't achieve a lot, but I guess I must be missing something, but he'll get there. And I think Williams, have steadily made ground, and Latifi's, doing okay. And that's pretty much what he's going to bring to the table. But Russell can make magic happen, and it's getting closer and closer.
Well, yeah, to put it in perspective, Russell had a really bad start,
mm-hmm.
And lost a few places, but recovered from P18 all the way to P12, kept Vettel behind him while passing Giovinazzi and Kvyat and Magnussen in the process.
Right.
I mean, that's actually a brilliant result for them.
For sure, yeah.
On balance. Now, as you said, Latifi, well, he had a better second start than he did the first start. Yeah. Is that what you said? I don't
know what
you said. Politely, he's doing decent. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he had a second.
I don't know how many did he spin this weekend? He usually spins a couple times.
He had an error.
Yeah.
While battling for position on the second lap after the better restart that he had, but he said that the tire degradation was a key factor for him all day. But they had achieved their target of getting ahead of Haas and Alfa Romeo.
Which they did, yeah.
Which they did. So there you go. And I think it's good on them. Let's see who's up next. Alfa Romeo.
Steering wheel.
So you have Kimi Räikkönen in P15, Antonio Giovinazzi in P16. Kimi had damage from debris from both starts, Paul, with the front floor taking the hit on the first start and then the front wing taking the hit on the second start, and that compromised his race. The team did swap the drivers to see if Giovinazzi could make any headway, as he had a good start and made up several positions early on and seemed to have more pace than Kimi's damaged car. However, he stayed out long. They only boxed him for new tires when the safety car came out, and that ceded the position to Kimi.
There you go.
And that's it.
Yeah, I mean, once again, you're looking at it, we're talking about Ferrari's woes, then Williams buoyed a little bit by their results, but then we're looking further down the field and it's all Ferrari engine things. So there's got to be a key factor that this track was really needed. You needed the power from the engine to get you going, and the Ferrari is lacking that, and all these teams are suffering for it.
Yeah, for sure. All the Ferrari powered cars at the very back, pretty tough. All right, let's talk about Haas. Kevin Magnussen, P17, Romain Grosjean, DNF. Well, I think you could understand from Kevin's standpoint that he was a little distracted. And anyone would in that position. Romain is a friend of his. He was obviously very concerned. He finished down in 17th, and you could understand him just trying to get through that race at that point, right?
Yep.
But I did want to share with you guys his comments that I thought were that shows a side of Kevin that most people don't see. He said, quote, "Firstly, I'm just very, very happy to see Romain walk away from that crash. It was unbelievable to see him survive. That is frankly a miracle. I'm so happy that the halo was introduced and it was on his car. Without it, I'm sure it would have been a very different outcome. That's really all from me today." And he goes, "I'm just happy that we still have Roma." End quote. He didn't talk about the race, didn't talk that. He said, bottom line, that's it for me. That's all you're getting. I'm just really, really happy we have Roma.
Yep, fair enough. That
was good. So let's talk about Grosjean. Grosjean suffered a massive crash that saw the nose of his Haas split the metal barriers and cleave the car into two pieces, spilling fuel and starting a fire. Thankfully, the halo, the Hans device, the medical car, and corner marshal all combined to save Romain's life from that fiery hell. We haven't seen that in a long time. Ross Braun said,
"Life moves pretty fast. You don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it."
Yeah, that's not what Russ said.
No,
soundbite for Russ Braun. Russ Braun did say that with over 100 kilos of fuel on board, this wasn't that kind of fire, suggesting that it wasn't like all 100 kilos because the fire would be much bigger. And I kind of feel like Russ would know. But he did say they have to investigate how the fire started and all the other aspects of the circuit and safety that were involved in this. When this happened, I had all these people sending me messages and see, you were an anti Halo person and you're, an idiot for doing that because it saved his life. And, again, I have to say,
Stop yelling at Todd.
That is not my position on Halo. And it has not been my position that I'm anti-Halo. My position all along has been that I think there's possibly a more elegant solution, number one. And number two is that this rush for a pragmatic solution, which has saved lives as evident of this weekend alone, is still a situation. And I would just run this gambit of what ifs. What if it was a 50G impact, Paul? It very likely could have knocked the driver unconscious.
Right.
And if he was unconscious and looking at the marshal response and looking at the medical team without full cover face mask, how would we have gotten Roman out of the top of that halo? And that's my concern. If you look at Lance Stroll over on top, he didn't just pop out of there. He had to work it getting out of that thing. And my concern all that time ago was if there's an unconscious driver and there's a fire, I'm worried about that situation. Now I understand you can't solve for everything. And I understand that it's saving. You could easily say, look, it's going to save more lives than it might cost. And that's a good thing. And I get it. That's been my position all along. Thankfully, in this case, Romain Grosjean was not knocked unconscious. And I think that's a great thing. I'm concerned, like I said, that this approach isn't the most elegant solution. But I'm concerned more about an unconscious driver in this situation, and even in non-fire related situations where time is critical and extrication time is vital. I'm just concerned about that, right? I'm not saying I'm right or wrong, but that's what I'm concerned about. I'm grateful for the Halo device in Romain's case, for sure. But it wasn't just the Halo. I'm also grateful for the Hans device, Paul, because that was 50 Gs at 140 miles an hour. The Hans device should be considered a very important part of that, as well as the fire extinguisher, as well as the medical car team, and everyone assisted in saving Romain's life. I think it's good. Thankfully, Romain is okay. It looks like if Pietro Fittipaldi, who you and I spoke to.
Yeah, I know Pietro.
Yeah, you know him well. You've
been a few days with him, yeah.
Yeah, good guy. He's going to replace
family.
him for the next week's race, and I think it's a good idea. Romain and his wife, he has a wife and kids, and I think there's no push to get back in. He's going to be exiting F1 anyway. He's slated for release on Tuesday. So the one thing I want to say up front also, before I toss this over to you to unpack, Paul, is that I know there's been a lot of debate about the metal barrier. And I would just tell the listeners to go over to Motorsport Magazine's website. They had a very interesting article from a track designer who basically said, wait a minute, whoa, everybody time out on this metal barrier thing. He said the metal barrier did exactly what it's supposed to do. And he breaks it down by the video explaining how that car went in, what the first post did, what the second post did in restraining, the deformation and retardation and bleeding off or dissipating that amount of energy. 50 Gs, 140 miles an hour, it deformed itself and bled that off. The monocoque did its job, but the barrier, he was saying, did as well. So go read that. I'm not taking one side or the other on the barrier. I'm just saying it's worth looking at that argument, counter argument, because all I've seen on social media and even in F1 print is, well, the lessons learned, the top 10 things we should learn is these barriers got to go and they should get Tech Pro. Well, you know, this guy makes a pretty good point about Carlos Sainz submarining under Tech Pro, and it was the metal barrier that actually stopped him. And so there's some you know, there's a different side to this story that should be accounted for, and I'm sure the FIA will do so. Anyway, Paul, how did you see this accident? Because you watched it multiple times in review.
I did. It's brutal to watch that. And obviously the first instinct was I thought the guy was dead. And you see someone spear off like that. It's always a worry when you're a racing driver, especially in open wheel, that you're driving at over 200 miles an hour. And it's one thing to have gravel traps at the end of a braking zone if you lose your brakes, but when you're in close proximity to another car and there's any rubbing, turn, anything can happen, that the tracks aren't prepared for every single different scenario. If you are hit on a straightaway, definitely the safety areas aren't as robust as in a corner. Right. And I don't think there was a failure in the system itself, but it's definitely something that, you know, might occur to you in your head every now and again when you're out there racing against someone. And unfortunately, it was something that happened for Romain. Breaking it down initially, I'm still not sure why Romain did what he did on the track, because he came across pretty aggressively, and Daniel Kvyat didn't have anything to do. So that kind of led to a contact in a place where you normally wouldn't have contact anyway. But the way they've got the track laid out, they had that kind of scenario accounted for. The barrier did do a great job. I mean, if you see the trajectory of the car, if that barrier was any weaker, or if you say it was a Techco barrier and you could go under it, Romain was heading straight for the booth where there was 4 safety workers standing right there.
Right.
So that barrier standing up to that impact was not just saving Roman, but it saved a lot of other people's lives also. So you do need something that can deform it, but that can still catch the car in itself. And we talked about it before the podcast. There's all been so many different safety designs for racetracks as the evolution has gone on, right? Whether it be gravel traps or it be catch fencing with posts, tires. And one of the things we talked about was the tires and, the different evolution of a tire barrier. And originally it was just stacked up a bunch of individual tires and put them in front of a barrier or in front of a tree. And then
they chained the tires together.
And then they changed the tires together, right? And then a car goes in there, certainly a Formula car can disperse, just like we saw with the metal barrier, can split them, and then it becomes no resistance at all. So then they decided they'd put belts in front of the tires so that the car can't basically split the tires as easily. And then they dropped the earth in front of where that tire barrier was, so it was underneath the level of the ground, so that a Formula car, certainly with the noses, they can dip and get right under that barrier and flip it right over it. So they dropped a couple of feet. They dug that tire barrier.
You said Sonoma did that, right?
Sonoma did that, yeah. I remember in turn 2 when it did that, and just analyzing how that works, and it was a great advantage to keeping a Formula car from going underneath a tire barrier. My thought is maybe there's something there that, because the Armco did a great job in absorbing the impact. The problem with what happened was that it split the Armco, and Roman was able to get between it. And yes, the halo saved him at that point from going unconscious, etc. But it did cause some issues, obviously. So if there's some way that we can take some of that idea about the tire barrier, where we have a solid piece of something in front of that corrugated Armco and with its gaps, etc., to alleviate some of the, how the barrier deforms and how cars can actually go further into the barrier, which you definitely don't want to do. They desert, you can put concrete barriers out there. We talked about that before the podcast, but obviously that is very unforgiving.
There's no dissipation.
No dissipation, but the cars are built to withstand that unless you have safer barriers everywhere. So if you can get something to dissipate some of the energy, that's certainly going to help the driver survive the incident and lower those G's of impact. And we know the cars can handle it, and that they deform also, but anything we can do to disperse the energy in a quick form just saves that driver. Then that's exactly what happened in a lot of impacts where we had, the neck restraints.
With Hans.
Didn't matter if the car was deforming, if your head was going forward at that kind of rate, there's nothing saving you. So the Hans device and any other next restraints that they've come have done a great service to all the drivers and all these different things. Some things that kind of scared me a little bit was the training or the assertiveness of some of the corner workers in this incident. We've gone so many years without fires, etc., that maybe you can be a little forgiving on how people react to it because they've never seen anything like that in their life. I praise God for the one marshal that ran across from the other side, and he was the guy that got the extinguisher on Roman and allowed the drivers of the safety car, medical car, to pull Roman out. There was another safety worker that got there earlier on the other side of the barrier, but he seemed very hesitant to go any further than he felt comfortable with that extinguisher, and that did not help the incident at all. If Roman had been knocked out, that was a guy that could have made a really big difference. But his hesitation, and everyone goes there for a different reason. Some of these people volunteer because they want a good seat in the race, and nothing really is ever going to happen very much. And they may be the third string guy, but you're the guy with a fire extinguisher, and you can make a difference. If you're not going to do that, then replace those people with someone that will.
Right.
We go to all these different countries, and we talk about the driver board making penalties and that, and the different guy getting brought into that committee for every race. Well, the marshals are definitely something. They're not flying all around the world, and there's definitely a big disparity in training and experience when you go to all these different countries that don't really have a really solid motorsports.
Right.
Right. Bahrain does not have that.
Right.
You go to England, you go to the US, you go to Germany, you go to Nürburgring. Those people are nearly there, 200 days a year doing that job. They know exactly what to do. But when you're going into these countries which really don't have much of a motorsports background, who knows what degree of training these people got and whether they are the real deal or not. But as I said, thank God for that one guy, because I think he made a massive difference on the outcome of Roman's crash.
No doubt about it. And, these guys aren't, all credit to IndyCar. They're not the Hamatra crew. The Hamatra guys are the men and women that work for that group. This is what they do for a living, and so they're all in, right? Yeah. And it's a little different to get that from a volunteer base. But I agree with you. The one gentleman that ran across, and I think the doctor even said it was that one blast from that allowed him to get close enough to get a hold of Roman and assist him out. Right. And I'm not quite sure that crash was so violent. Roman he got out with one boot off. He didn't have a boot on, So when you look at this on the balance of it, the monocoque did its job and what it's supposed to do, the safety cell. The halo system did its job. Otherwise that barrier would have been hitting his helmet, right? You remember Valtteri Bottas, and Tom brought this up, Tom Firth brought this up. It was a great point. Remember Valtteri Bottas talking about the heavier racing suits and being black and how hot they were. Mm-hmm. That heavier racing suit saved his life and prevented some serious burns, right? Yep. So you have that, the Hans device, a 50G deceleration, 50G impact, that Hans device saving his life. There were so many things involved. The medical team there to assist him and get him out and assess him and get him away from that danger. That one marshal spraying that cockpit just to allow him to get out. Roman not being unconscious, but being fit and being able to get out of there on his own power,
him being not unconscious was a massive, because if he was change to how this could have ended up.
It could have been very, very, very tragic. And so there were a lot of pieces to this that were all functioning correctly. The barrier, stopping that from going into a marshal's stand from, a group of marshals or careening over, and there was a ditch right behind it. He would have been tossed and, it would have been very violent at 140 miles an hour. So there were a lot of elements at play. So before you armchair quarterback this and start beating up on the metal barrier or whatever, and I know everybody, this is Francois Severi. How you like, I get it. But, we still have metal barriers for a reason. They do their job. And I think Paul's point is they maybe look at a way that they don't split as easily in that type of, but, I think even everyone admits it's kind of a freak accident and that what happens. And it's difficult to account or accommodate for freak accidents, So anyway, before you wax poetic about metal barriers or pro or con Hans device, I still think I still have concerns about Hans in every single permutation of an incident, and I hope it doesn't ever happen.
Halo, you mean?
Yeah, Halo. Yeah. Halo, and I still have concerns about that. Does that mean I think they should take it off? Of course not. I think there's plenty of reasons why it should be there. I hope they come up with a more elegant solution, but regardless, that's my point on it. But be sure to check out all the different information out there. I thought that article was a compelling article about the barrier and it doing its job.
Yeah, I think the good thing is there's a lot went right, but there was also a lot that didn't go right, and a lot that can be improved on. And the good thing is we know from the FIA is they're going to be on it immediately, and usually pretty honest with what was positive and negative to this and how to fix it. Right? You can't fix Rome in a day, but they will not relent in improving for this kind of situation. And you know, looking beyond this oddball impact and see, okay, well, how could this, what we develop here to fix this, how could that help other scenarios in tracks around the world?
And I'm not advocating that they don't make a change to the metal barrier or put in something better. I'm just saying, you know, just I think it needs a measured investigation, which is what you're saying. The FIA look at, you know, if it is a metal barrier with sunk tires, which you see a lot of that, or sunk Tech Pro, or whatever it might be, you do see a lot of that. But is that the best solution? And I think the FIA will ferret it out. That's what they do. And I think, you know, there's other questions about how the car split in two, and where the monocoque is attached to the rear of that car, the fuel and how much fuel got released. And there are safety measures. There's a soft fuel bladder. Was it pierced and how? You know, there's a lot of stuff that I think, to your point, Paul, that the FIA will look at very closely. And there may be some safety things that come out of this because of that. There certainly was safety issues that came out after Jules Bianchi.
Right. Absolutely.
Yep. All right. That's what I think about it. I am grateful, though, that Romain Grosjean is well. And I saw the video and another picture of him today. And he's got his hands bandaged, of course, with minor burns. They thought he might have had broken ribs, but apparently he doesn't. And it really is a miracle.
It is.
To come out of that.
He's a happy, great guy, you know. I mean,
yeah, he is.
He makes mistakes on the track every now and again, and we point it out, etc. But there's certainly nothing about Romain Grosjean that you don't like, and it doesn't even matter, right? But we're just all grateful that the outcome wasn't what it initially looked like, and that, you know, he miraculously got out of the incident.
Oh yeah, it's amazing, and it was great. And I echo Kevin at this point. I'm just grateful we have Romain, you know. And I know his wife and kids are too, and that's what's important. And it's a sobering fact. If there's anything about this whole crash, it's yet again another sobering fact of just how dangerous motorsport can be.
Yep.
And Formula One in this case, and motorsport in general, Paul. And all the safety measures you can do, it's still a dangerous sport at 200 miles an hour. So
sure is. Yeah. I mean, I think I was a bit more against the halo than maybe you were, just aesthetically, etc. like that. It's certainly, I would like a better solution for sure.
Yeah, I would too.
I don't want to take away head protection from these guys. So it's all good stuff that led to, you know, seeing Roman, you know, fight for another day. So it's awesome.
Yeah, for sure. All right. And finally, we talk about Racing Point, Sergio Perez. Oh boy.
You like my bass? Like it?
I did like it.
We don't like your engine though, Perez.
Yeah. Don't like that crap Mercedes engine. He had a DNF, and then Lance Stroll.
I want it now. What's the matter with those twats down there?
Another DNF, a brutal weekend in which the podium finish was certainly denied Sergio Perez due to an uncharacteristic Mercedes engine failure, which you just don't see. So that Mercedes has been bulletproof, and for that to happen in the final laps while running in third, it's just truly unfortunate. Sergio had held third for most of the race, had great pace, managing the tires again, heading for a second straight podium until the MGUK failed, and very unfortunate. Handed third place to Alex Albon, but he's in the shop window, man, Paul, and 2 podiums would have went a long way.
It would have.
But I think everyone knows the quality of Sergio anyway. Without this podium, he was there. It was his. I think everybody knew it. It was just unfortunate and such an uncharacteristic thing to happen.
I know, right?
To blow up.
I know, it's awful. I mean, a brilliant race by him, and he's been on fire recently. I think really getting the most out of everything. Lance has been a bit off, So maybe that's accentuated how good
right.
Perez is. But he's been fighting for podiums, and the results don't play out, but everyone saw what he did, and there's no. It would be a crying shame if he doesn't get a good ride for next year, because he's just showing that he's got all the pieces in place right now.
Yeah.
Be it speed, tire management, composure, that he hasn't showed all his life. But I think he's a pretty complete package right now that any team would be very welcome to have if they can make the money work.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. It's we'll see. Still time out there. I read today that he says he's definitely got 2022 possibilities. So we'll see. I don't know. I'm not going to say who or what team, but I got to be honest with you. There's plenty of places I would put Perez before some of the current drivers on that grid.
Yeah, for sure.
And I'm talking about at the sharp end of the grid too.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, tough for Stroll. His world was turned upside down when Kvyat tucked his nose in the inside.
Oh, nicely done.
And flipped the Canadian on his head. It took Lance a little bit to wiggle out of that halo, and he finally got out of the cockpit, managed to free himself, and he just said he's got such a bad luck going on, or a run of bad luck. He needs to turn that around. He said, I just need that run of bad luck to end. And
well, the team needs it too.
Yeah, the team definitely needed it, Lance. Your dad's looking down the barrel at $11 million. It'd be really handy if you'd finish the damn race.
Yeah, that'd be great. Please.
Be great. His failures to score points in the last two races and Sergio's DNF have allowed McLaren to jump them for third in the Constructors' Championship, and that's worth a lot of money, and that really stings. And I always, I appreciate his point. I was like, but this is nothing we can do about it, and we just have to look at the next race and everything. It's like, Lance, you got to got some sense of urgency there, man.
Yeah,
but. Anyway, bad weekend for them at all in total.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, yes, it's a bit of a weapon, that car, and unfortunately they didn't get anything out of it. Mm-hmm. And these days don't come around very often for the mid packs to be fighting for a podium just on pure pace.
Yeah, that's right.
And to come out with 0 points is pretty brutal. The mid pack race for the third position is incredibly entertaining, but it's cutthroat as well. So you give up those points. I don't know how to come back from that one.
I don't either. And especially if you consider, Paul, you got to think that McLaren, I don't know how much money they're throwing at developing week on week at this point,
Right.
So now that you've got a weapon like the Racing Point, you got to maximize these opportunities, because you're not going to get them. And you would think you'd be catching McLaren on a lack of development at this point, that you should be, or Renault, who may, possibly have stopped developing this car. So now's the time to attack. But an engine failure, getting in these silly incidents that Lance has got, I don't know.
I mean, and the engine failures, it's like, I don't know, we're getting to the end of the season. You got that 3-engine rule. We've been banging these races out. Is there enough time to analyze the engines in between races to, I know they can't change the engine, but you can definitely look into them a little more detailed to try and foresee these kind of things happening. I just wonder if we might see a little more engine failures as we head into these last two races.
Right. Well, we very well could. All right, well, let's give away some awards. The first award is always pass of the race. Woo! Get down.
Or move of the race.
What's that?
Move of the race.
Yeah, it is move of the race. I have to relabel my button.
You do.
This button here, that says pass.
I'm
changing
It's the details,
right,
Todd. It's the details.
It's totally the details.
You win or fail.
And I have just renamed that button to move. Move of the race. All right, Paul, move of the race. Who'd you have?
I'm giving it to our man with the fire extinguisher. I mean, that was a move of the race for sure.
Right. Big boy hustled all the way over there.
Big boy, I think he saw the impact, and he was on his way already as fast as he was going, and he had his head together and knew what to do and executed it, as we saw some other people didn't. I mean, hearts out to all the corner workers. I mean, I've worked with them for many years at the different racetracks I've been to, and they're they put in hours, and sometimes it's drudgery, and then all of a sudden there's excitement. But ultimately, if you can react in the right way at the right time, you can make such a difference to a driver and the driver's family's lives, and that guy did it.
Yep, I agree. Great move. Well, I'm close. I'm similar there. I'm giving move of the race to the medical car team because they're always right on the heels, and they're not dressed just to jump into the fire, but they did, and it says a lot to them how quick they were there, assisting and getting Roman out, and that was a good quick result by that team. They got to the incident in 10 seconds, I think it said. Yeah, so that was really good.
Yeah, they did not hesitate either. That's for sure.
No, they didn't.
On it, man.
Yeah, they were. And so anyway, great move by both of them. All right. Well, next award is Donkey of the Race. All right, Donkey of the Race. Who'd you get?
Well, I mean, I could have given it to Romain Grosjean, but I think the world would string me up.
I think they would. They gave him driver the race.
Or I gave him driver the race for his move at the beginning that caused the incident. If the incident had been a bit more, the incident or crash at the end would be a bit more mundane, I might have gone for it, but I'm not. I'm not saying that. Okay. But I am giving it to later on in the race when, as Lando pointed out, there was a corner worker or a marshal on the track running across a live track. With a fire extinguisher in their hand, and we've seen in the past that can be deadly. And it's really tough to call on these people, but man, that is just something that is you got to be careful. And if you're new to F1, look up Tom Price. Yeah, and that is watch the video. That's just garish. Yeah, that was a marshal running across the track with a fire extinguisher. Tom hit him, obliterated the marshal, and the fire extinguisher damn near decapitated Tom. Right. And it's something, the other guy that ran to Roman's aid, obviously all the cars had gone by him, the track was, already safe. But at that point, you just got to be careful. Yeah, got to be careful. Yeah. Do not want anyone hurt. Drivers, marshals, anybody. No. And that's two incidents on the trot, Paul. They had the crane on track and then a marshal on track. I don't know. They just got to tighten this stuff up. Yeah, I think there's going to be some serious conversations with that whole group before the next race kicks off this weekend. Yeah, I think so too. All right. Well, then finally we have drive of the race. Yes, Paul. You ever see that Vettel one where he's like, yeah, it's a funny little GIF or whatever you call it these days, or whatever the kids call it. Yeah, is it a GIF? Yes, it is a GIF. It is a GIF. Okay, so I'm gonna give it to Gasly. Ooh. Yep. Excellent. Yep. He's my pick. I think I've picked him too many times this year. People think I've got a man crush on him or something. You do have a man crush on Pierre. Probably. Yeah. I mean, he's just been driving sensational. I think once again, he drove a fantastic complete race, and what he was doing at the end, even though he was going backwards, was very, very impressive. That's exactly right. I thought you were going to take Daniel Kvyat. And if you no longer go for a gap that exists, you're no longer a racing driver. No longer a racing driver, Mr. Stewart. Yes. You were coming down hard on Pierre there. He saw a gap and he went for it. All right. Well, I am giving it to one Carlos Sainz. Ooh. I think Carlos had look. I understand the F1 website. Everybody gave it to Romain Grosjean, and rightfully so for what he went through. And I think that's a great sentiment. And I totally agree with everybody voting that way. But as the actual race, I gave it to Carlos Sainz because I think Carlos coming back from having that miserable qualifying in a McLaren that, let's be honest, isn't developing week on week and gaining, tenths of seconds every week in development,
to really get that car hooked up on those soft tires, make those soft tires last as long as he did to claw all the way back up. That was a great performance.
Yeah, it really was. He's been doing it also week after week like Gasly in my mind, and just solidifying why Ferrari should be very happy to have him.
Yeah, I think they're in good hands with Carlos and Charles Leclerc for sure.
Yeah.
Big question is, are both of those drivers in good hands with Ferrari?
Right. So that's a big.
And that's a Ferrari fan saying that. So it's tough. All right, let's do some mailbag.
You've got mail.
So Paul Richards.
Is that the same Paul you had a conversation with earlier?
It is.
Ah, very good. Yeah. Paul's a great guy. Yeah, he is a great guy.
He's a great guy, and he had some really.
He likes bicycles.
Yeah.
And cars.
And he likes Lotuses a lot.
Yeah.
But he's got this super cool limited edition print of Fangio signed by Fangio. I don't know how they do things down at Shoreham by Sea, but man, I'm telling you, that might be a reason to move down there. Lotus fans, Fangio signed prints. The dashingly handsome Paul Richards, I'm telling you, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Anyway, he said he had a question. He said, how will the cars and drivers cope next week with half the track new and half rubbered in from this weekend's race? That's a good point, Paul.
Yeah. Well, they're just going to wash the whole track like they did at
they're scrubbing the track
Yeah, how are they going to deal with it? Well, I mean, initially it's going to be something, but in the end, the track's just going to kind of work its way in to itself, and it won't be that big an issue.
Probably won't take too long to get the new part rubbered in.
Yeah, because there's such fast turns. It's not going to be as dire as maybe if it was, some slower turns, etc. So I think with downforce being the biggest gainer for a Formula One car, and those fast turns being the predominant part of what that track layout is, it's not going to be too big an issue, but they'll sweep the track a little bit too anyway, so that won't be an issue. But yeah, it will rubber in just a little bit of those turning points, but I think ultimately it's not going to be a real bad thing for them to deal with.
Right. Yep. Good question though, Paul. I appreciate it. Thanks for the chat this weekend. Loved chatting with you. Down there at Shoreham by Sea in the UK, he said it's in Sussex, which is next door to Kent. Have you been to Sussex, Paul?
Of course I have. I haven't been to Shoreham by Sea though.
No?
At least not that I know of.
It's like 10 miles from Goodwood, he said.
Yeah. Well, I've definitely been to Goodwood, but I didn't go any further south than that. Yeah. I didn't go to the
next time you'll go on down to Shoreham by Sea.
I came from McLaren at Woking down to Goodwood to go to the members meeting, and then went back up again to Silverstone. Okay. So
yeah,
that wasn't a bad loop either.
Yeah, you're all over the place on the M whatever. That's crazy. All right, well, that does it. That's what we think about the race. And let us know what you think about it. Huge thank you to our Patreon supporters. We couldn't and would not do this podcast without you. I know there's a lot of other great F1 podcasts out there, and for all the right reasons, but I cannot tell you how grateful we are for your support of this podcast. And as Paul said, sometimes, Paul Richards, I'm talking about. Sometimes it's good to, mix it up. He knows we're an American podcast and all the British listen to the British podcast, and that's awesome. But he enjoys having our American perspective. Paul, I didn't have the heart to tell him that you're British. I didn't have the heart to tell him that it doesn't get any more British than you.
Well, it probably gets more British than me now, right? I mean, I get Thanksgiving and. Yeah,
that's true. Yeah, you do.
I don't know. I didn't know what accent I have now, really. Huh?
I said you do some American
I do.
things.
I do some American things. You're correct.
Yeah, we've kind of ruined him.
Yeah, it took me a while to warm up to American music, Did
it?
Finally, REM,
they sold out.
Soaked in. Yeah, they did sell out. Orange Crush. Deal with it, Grace.
Deal with it, Grace. Right. Well, we can't all be hip Scorpion fans like you.
Oh.
So there you
How
go.
old was that guy in Scorpion? He was like 64 when he was
Yeah, he may have been
20.
Klaus. That's right.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Anyway, but we appreciate the support of the podcast as always. Go over to iTunes, give us a good rating, give us a little love over there if you have time. If you are a big fan of the podcast, certainly we would be grateful for your support at Patreon, and let us know what you think in the comments section of this podcast. If you like watching things, well, we do record these now. Again, I'm just cautioning you. I don't do any fancy editing with big time special effects and all kinds of maps and track layouts and all kinds of
hand
video.
puppets sometimes.
I do hand puppets occasionally. I may turn the lights off and do some shadow puppets at some point, but that's about it. All right. But if you like listening or watching Talking Heads, then you can do that over at our YouTube channel. And I don't typically post those podcasts. So feel free. Paul, we have 2 more weeks.
Two in a row?
2 in a row.
Man, the workload.
I know the workload. I know. It's crazy. Everything I ask of you.
I know.
It's crazy. So we're going to have the Sakir Grand Prix next week. Mm-hmm. So any of you dog owners looking to get rid of that pesky dog, just go chuck him over the fence, because apparently that's all you got to do. And then everybody wants to adopt him. So there you go. If you're looking to get rid of your dog, you can do it one more time at Sakir. Yeah. And then we go to Abu Dhabi for the final. So you're going to have 2 more weekends of Paul and I. So I hope you guys can enjoy that.
Get ready.
Get ready, because we're coming back with a vengeance. All right. That does it. Until next week when we do it all over again, this is Todd, a.k.a. Negative Camper, saying so long.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.